Welcome to this SciFinder session. I'm going to introduce you to some basic ways that we can access SciFinder to retrieve the journal articles or the patent documents or the reactions and so forth that we need to look for. So this is our SciFinder window. I'm going to enter my password and sign in. Okay, what you'll see on the screen now is that we have a few options of how we can search SciFinder. We can search for references, we can search for substances, and finally we can also search for reactions. Now by default for my settings I already go directly to the references where I can search by a research topic, and we can see the box here where I can open this up and begin to enter a search. I can of course also search for an author or a company. When we say company here, we also do mean universities or research organisations. And as students, this can often be a good place to look up another university. Maybe you're looking to do a postgrad later on, and maybe you want to find out what they do at a certain university. Then we can certainly search for them in here. Okay, I'm going to go straight in to do a research topic. And the way that we conduct these, in fact you can already see some examples of what I've searched here, is I can search for fairly natural language topics. So if I want to search for green synthesis, let's say with microwave irradiation, and then click on search. So I'm using the ways that I would talk to a colleague. What am I interested in? I'm interested in, green synthetic roots, perhaps using microwave irradiation. So I don't need to use any particular way of constructing how I enter my search term. And what we see now is we can see that we've got just over 2,000 references, in fact, that contain both of those concepts of green synthesis and also microwave irradiation. And we're going to take this top set of answers and get the references. Okay, here's our references. Now what you will see is these references are in the order that we get them at SciFinder. So this first reference at the top here, this would be the most recent that we have had at SciFinder and we have entered in, and it's there at position number 1. Now if I want to look at the detail of these records, on the screen here of course I just see the title and a little bit of the abstract. Then if I do click on the title, I'll be able to open this up a little bit fuller so I can see more of an idea of what this document is about. One thing that may be also useful to you is I'm also able to change the order of my answer set. So instead of sort by a session number, as in the most recent that we had, if I change this to sort by citing references, what this does is it brings to the top of my answer set now those journal articles or those documents that have been heavily cited, and therefore they're probably quite relevant within this area that I am interested in. So if we want to take a look at this particular record and we click on the title here, solvent-free heterocyclic synthesis, then we can see a little bit more about this document. I see the title, I see the abstract, I can also see that it's a review, and I can see what we call the concepts, and this is the main features that are contained within this particular article. I can also see over on the right hand side here the actual journal names. This is from the Chemical Reviews, and also the organisation that published this document. Okay, if I want to go back, I just need to click here onto return, and that then takes me back to my main answer set once more. A couple of other things you might want to do with a text-based search is we have some options here for analyze, refine and categorize. Now with the analyze tab, this reflects precisely what is in my answer set. The default is to show you the author name, but I can of course change that, and maybe I want to see what organisations are represented in this answer set. And here we can see some of the universities that are here within this answer set. I can also do things such as analyse by the document type, and that will show me that a significant amount of these of course are journal articles, but we have reviews, there's also some patents, meeting abstracts, and so on. So this reflects precisely what is in my answer set. Now if I know what I'm looking for, and maybe you know that you are looking for a certain author or a certain company, then we can use the Refine tab to focus down and find that information. So if I click on Refine, I have the option here to add in maybe another term. Perhaps I'm looking for the synthesis of aldehydes, then maybe I can use aldehydes as another research topic. Or the other option, perhaps I only want to see fairly recent publications. And in that case, if I click on publication year, I can either enter a specific year or a range, and so on. So if I enter in 2016 onwards, and I can do that either by entering to 2018 or just leaving the dash there, and click on Refine, then I now have 598 references that were published in that given time frame. Now there's a few other things that you might want to do when you create a search in SciFinder. If this is a new topic, if you think about that you are maybe exploring a project and you do your initial SciFinder search, what you might also want to consider is using what we call a create keep me posted, and this basically sets up an alert that if a new publication comes in that matches what you've searched, then you'll get an email to say, hey, there is a new reference that matches this search, and then you can go and view that. If I click on the button, you can see I can enter a title for this. I can also enter a description if you wish to do that. And also we can see that it does expire in 1 year's time, and I can change that to a shorter time frame if I want to. I can also ask how often I want to see these updates. Do I want to see them every week, or do I want to see them every month? And then if I click on create, that then sets up this keep me posted, that if more articles come in that talk about green synthesis in relation to microwave irradiation, then I will get an email that tells me precisely that. Okay, let's go back. So if I want to go back and maybe explore a chemical substance, I can see I've done a research topic here, but if I want to look for a chemical substance, then I come over to this middle box right here. Now there's actually a couple of ways that you can use this. I can draw a chemical structure, and we'll come on to that in a few moments' time. Or if I know what the name of the substance is, or maybe I also know what the CAS registry number is, then I can use what we call the substance identifier. So if I click on substance identifier, and I put my cursor in the box here, and I type in limonene. It's used as a fragrance in lots of household products, cleaning products, and also candles and things like that. So if I want to search for this substance and I know what the name is, I can enter it here and then click on search. And what this does, when we do the search this way, this actually tells us about this substance, and we can see what the structure is. We can also see what the registry number is, and the registry number is very important when you are searching for chemical substances, because it is a unique identifier for that substance. I can also see very quickly by the appearance of this brown flask here that within SciFinder I can find commercial sources where I can buy this. With the green flask, I can see that there are reactions within SciFinder that involve this, where perhaps I can make it, or even it's used within a reaction itself. And lastly, I can also see that there are a lot of references about this substance within SciFinder too. Now, if I want to see a little bit more of the detail about this substance, then I have a couple of options here. I can either come to within the structure, use this chevron and click here, and I can come up to view substance detail. Or other than that, what takes me to the exact same place is if I simply click on the CAS registry number. So if we click on this, this is what we now see. We'll see some basic information at the top, such as melting points and boiling points and so forth. But we can also see all of the other names that limonene may also be known as. And this is one indication of why it's quite important to search for this substance record itself, rather than maybe trying to search by text terms. Our indexers who index the SciFinder content, they will apply the same registry number to all of the references, irrespective of what it's called by name. Now, the other things that we see in a substance record is we can also see experimental properties. So I can see biological properties, chemical properties. I can also see things such as the thermal properties, which relates to boiling points or melting points, if that's the case. Also, I can see the experimental spectra. And depending on how well existing the substance is, we may have a lot of spectra. In other cases, we may not have so much. But for this particular case, we can see we have NMR, proton NMR, carbon NMR, heteroatom NMR. We also have infrared, mass spectra, and so on. And in many of these records as well, you'll be able to see that there is a link to the spectra itself, as well as the reference where we got this from. And in fact, we can see what these references are right here. So if I want to click on one of these, it'll open up the image, and then I can see precisely what the spectra is, and even any other further information relating perhaps to some conditions or the equipment itself as well. And of course, you can see I can go and print this off if I want to as well. Let me close that down. If we don't have experimental properties or spectra, we'll certainly have predicted properties or spectra as well. So you'll be able to take a look at these and have a glance through if there is anything there of any interest to you. The last couple of things I just want to point out from this is there is a tab that relates to regulatory information. And certainly as you go out into industry, regulatory information is extremely important, because it will let us know how we can handle this and how we can export or import this given substance. And that is also contained here within SciFinder. Okay, let's go back up to the top again. So that's where I know what my chemical name is, or my CAS registry number. And as I mentioned, we can quickly jump and go to get reactions if I want to see reactions to make this or where it's used, where I can get commercial sources, and I see these repeated here as well. And of course, get references. So if I want to get the references on this one substance, I can click right here. I also have some further options. Do I want to limit my results to where limonene, for example, is in a preparation, or maybe they are talking about it as a reactant or reagent, or it's involved in an analytical study or a biological study? So I have some means here where I can also refine down the number of answers. So that is also available to me. So if I click on Get, I now have all of the documentations that involves limonene as a known and indexed substance. And of course, once more, if I want to look at my analyze, or I wish to refine, and maybe I want to refine in this case to perfume, where it's used in perfume products, I can add that in, and then it will bring these records back to me. Now, I typed in the word perfume, but notice that it also highlights some other words such as fragrance and aroma. SciFinder has a lot of intelligence built behind it, and when it sees some words, it will also say, well, that word probably could be also described in other ways, so I will search for those as well. Now, the last thing that I'm going to cover for this short demo is how we can actually draw a chemical structure. There may be often times where you are presented with a structure, you don't know what the name of the substance is, you have no idea. So we want to be able to draw it within SciFinder as well. So to do that, if we come over to substances again, or we go to chemical structure, and what we'll have here, there's a very small tab, right here, the structure editor. So I'm going to click in this space to open it up. And now what we have is we have the structure editor window where we can draw our chemical structures. Now there's lots of functionality within this window, and what I would recommend is that you try things out. If you have some spare time, explore in the structure editor and see what these different buttons do. There is of course the top one, the pencil, where I can draw a bond freehand. The eraser, which is often quite important to know about, of course. I can select atoms. I can select what we call shortcuts, and that means things such as this, where I can quickly draw a methyl or a methoxy or a trifluoromethyl and so on. I also have options to include variables. So maybe I want to use some of these at some point, where X would be any halogen and M might be any metal. But for this demonstration, I'm going to keep it fairly simple, and I'm going to draw the structure for caffeine. So I'm going to come down to this bottom part here where we have our ring systems and our bonds. We can see we have our single, double, triple, and also unspecified bonds. And we have our common atoms. It's not the complete list, of course, because we will have them right here. And we have our ring systems. Now you might notice that in this display here, we only see 6-membered or 5-membered rings. But this button here allows me to draw anything between 3 and 15-sided rings. So I can use that if I wish to do so. But I'm going to draw caffeine, so I'm going to take my cyclohexane. I just click on it and drop it on that window. I'm also going to take my cyclopentadiene, and I'm going to put that across the top there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my single bonds, and I'm going to draw these in. We have another one over here. And in fact, what I can also do with this is I can click on top of an existing single bond to make it a double bond. But I'm also going to put some double bonds in as well. Right here and here. And I'm going to put 4 nitrogens in here, this position, and then lastly over here, my oxygens. And then I'm going to use the shortcut button here to put the methyls in. So if I click on shortcut, I'll go to methyl, I'll drop that in, and then that quickly represents that CH3. And in fact, if you hover over any of these shortcuts, it will show you precisely what they will represent when you use them within a structure. Now I'm going to search for this as a structure. I'm going to search what we call an exact search. So I'm going to click on this button here. Go OK, and then search it. Now, what you may be surprised to see now is, in fact, we don't have one substance. We have over 1,000. And that is because when you search for a substance as an exact substance in SciFinder, it will find the exact substance, and that in fact is right here at the top. We can see that our answer set is sorted by relevancy, so it's going to match up with caffeine at the top. But when you do an exact substance, you will also find mixtures, salt forms, and so on as well. So these will all be represented when you do an exact structure search. But because it is there by relevancy, then the first answer out is going to be the closest to exactly what I've drawn. So I can see that this is it, this is what I've drawn, it's caffeine. And of course, if I want to explore it like we saw a few moments ago with the limonene, then I can go ahead and click on the registry number or use the chevron to explore more options and see the record. Now, if I only want to find records for this substance that I've drawn, then all I need to do is click in the box right here and then go to Get References. And when I do that, you can see selected references. That button is highlighted. But if I did change my mind and I thought, you know what, I want to find for all of the substances, then of course I can check this, and that would get for all 1,000 substances that I have. I'm not going to do that process right now. What I am going to come on to quickly is another way that we can explore something by structure. And again, you probably noticed it a little earlier on. If I click on this chevron, then I can come here to explore by structure. So if I do know the CAS registry number or the name and I get my record and maybe I want to look at it by structure to perhaps see what other substances might contain this, then I can most certainly do that. But I can of course also use these options, synthesize this, or get reactions where this substance is, and I can see a product, reactant, reagent, reactant or reagent, or even things such as a catalyst or a solvent. Any role, that would mean where it's anything in a reaction. So I would find products, reactants, reagents, catalysts and solvents as well. So when you do a structure search for a chemical substance, you will, when you do an exact search, find in many cases more than one answer, because I will find all of these mixtures, salts and so on as well. What I'm also able to do from this, however, is again I can see I have some analyze and refine options. And under refine, what I can also do is maybe I want to change my structure or add something to it. But I can refine to substances that are in my answer set that may be commercially available, or where there are properties available as well. But also, if I want to be very specific and say, I'm interested in where there may be an isotope present in my retrieved structures, then I can click on this button for isotope containing, and then I have a further option to say, do I want to only see answers that have an isotope, or do I want to see everything that doesn't have an isotope associated with that? And then of course I can go ahead, refine my search. So I'll take those that do have an isotope, and we can see them represented in my answer set here. And then of course I can continue to go and explore these either by the registry number, or I can go and jump and go to Get References and maybe get the references for all of these where I am interested in isotope forms of caffeine, and then get those records. Now the other thing of course that we want to do, and this is where I'll just finish this short session, is it's okay, we've done our search, we've searched maybe by a topic, We perhaps have also considered searching by a name if we know it, and we can draw a structure. But what we also want to do is do something with these results. So if I want to take these results elsewhere, then what I can also do is I can come over here to the top right hand side, click on export, and then I can take my answers elsewhere. So maybe I want to use it in a citation manager tool, or the other option of course is I can export them as a PDF document, or maybe as an RTF document as well. And then I have the option to give it a name of something that's going to mean something to me, and also what format do I want to take these answers away. Do I want the full record? Do I want just summary with full abstracts, without abstracts, and so on, and then export these answers. And that allows you of course to then do your search, export your answers, take them away, and then read through them in your own time to assess whether that information is relevant to you or not. Now that concludes the brief introduction to SciFinder. What I will be passing on are some examples that you can try based on what we have covered in this session. Thank you for listening.